Can you live in a marriage that's functional but not intimate? Can you accept a partnership where you're growing but he's not? Or do you need more than just a better version of yourself, but you need a partner who's willing to grow with you? I'm not doing any of this for fun. I'm doing this because the marriage is breaking. If you're the one doing the work, your growth is not wasted. Most men don't change because you ask them to. They change because staying the same stops working. Well, hey, friend. I am so excited that you are here. We are in the middle of a 10-part series called Marriage Conversations Midlife Besties Are Having, but Are Afraid to Say Out Loud. And we have unpacked some pretty heavy, hard stuff. So in episode 1, we talked about the question that a lot of women are afraid to ask. We talked about, what if I don't even love him anymore? And in the second episode, we talked about why, even though he's doing what he's always done, why it isn't enough. And then in the third episode, we talked about the invisible load, the things that we are carrying that no one sees, but they're the things that are actually breaking us. And today we're going to be talking about really, I think, what gets to the heart of what matters. It's lonely growth. And it's the kind where you're doing all the work, where you're reading the books and you're going to therapy and you're listening to the podcasts. You're doing the exercises while he's doing nothing. You're learning about attachment styles and emotional regulation and how to communicate better. You're working on yourself. You're growing, you're changing, and he is the same. What do we do? What do we do when that is where we're at? And so that's what we're diving into today. Well, today we're talking about this loneliest kind of growth. It's the kind where you're doing the work on yourself. You're working on yourself, but he's not doing anything. And when you try to share what you're learning, when you invite him into the process, he's not interested in hearing about it. So what now? What do you do when you're the only one who's changing? And that's what we're talking about today. As you're doing these things, he says things like, well, that sounds great for you. Or I don't need that. I'm fine. Or you're reading too many of those self-help books and you want to scream. You want to tell him, I'm not doing any of this for fun. I'm doing it because I'm drowning. Here's what I need you to hear. The growth, the hard work that you're doing, it's not wasted. Even when you're the only one doing the work, even when he's not keeping up, even when it feels like you're evolving alone, because here's the truth. When you change, the marriage changes too. Not always in the way that you would hope, but it does change. And that change is creating something powerful, whether he joins you in it or not. So in episode 6, we are talking about, we're halfway through, really, this series on marriage, midlife marriage. And if you've been listening from the beginning, you know that we've covered some heavy ground. So let me paint you a picture of what one-sided growth looks like. She's reading every book she can find on marriage and communication and emotional health. She's listening to podcasts on her commute. She's journaling, she's praying, she's processing. Maybe she's even going to therapy, sometimes individual. Sometimes she's able to drag him to therapy, but when there, she does 90% of the talking while he sits there with his arms crossed. She's learning about her attachment style and how it shows up in conflict. She's learning how to regulate her emotions instead of just reacting to them. She's learning how to communicate her needs without sounding critical, how to set boundaries without feeling guilty, how to manage her anxiety so that it doesn't control her. She's doing an enormous amount of work, the hard, uncomfortable, soul-searching work of looking at herself honestly and figuring out what she needs to change. And you know what? She is changing. She's more self-aware. She's more articulate about her needs. She's more regulated in her responses. She's not perfect, but she's trying. She's growing. She's evolving. And he's exactly the same. Still reactive when she brings up hard topics, still defensive when she tries to talk about what's not working, still avoiding the things that feel uncomfortable, still operating from the same old patterns, the same assumptions, the same limited emotional toolkit that he's had since they got married. And when she tries to share what she's learning, he shuts down. That's great for you, but I don't need all that. I don't believe in all that stuff. Or you're overthinking everything. And she wants to scream, I'm not doing any of this for fun. I'm doing this because the marriage is breaking. Because here's what he doesn't understand. She's not reading those self-help books for enjoyment. She's not going to therapy because she has extra money burning a hole in her pocket. She's doing it out of desperation, really, not out of curiosity, out of survival, not self-improvement. And the fact that he can't see that, the fact that he thinks everything is fine while she's figuring things out in their marriage, it makes the loneliness more unbearable. But here's what you need to understand. If you're the one doing the work, your growth is not wasted. Even if you're the only one doing the hard, uncomfortable work, it's not wasted because every book that you read, every therapy session you attend, every hard truth you face, even when you're facing them about yourself, it's already changing things. It's changing you. And when you change, the marriage can't stay exactly the same. Here's how: you're showing up differently. So the dynamic shifts. When you stop reacting the same way, the old patterns start to crack. The system has to adjust. You're communicating differently, and so the conversations change. Even if he's still responding the same, you're not speaking from the same place, and that matters. You're setting boundaries, so the relationship has to adapt. When you're over functioning, space opens up. When you stop tolerating what doesn't work, the system has to respond. And you're modeling what growth looks like. And sometimes, oftentimes, that modeling is exactly what creates the conditions for him to wake up and grow too. Your growth is creating pressure for change, not forceful pressure, not manipulative pressure, but the natural pressure that comes when one half of the system evolves and the other half has to decide, do I evolve too, or do I stay the same? And that decision, that's totally on him. But your growth, it's not wasted either way. It's already working. Here's what most women don't realize. The marriage that you're experiencing right now is partly shaped by who you have been showing up as. Not because it's your fault, not because you caused the problems, but because you're half of the equation. And when you change, the equation therefore changes. So let me give you some examples. You learn how to regulate your emotions. And so instead of exploding when he does something hurtful, you take a breath, you process, and you respond calmly. And here's what that does: it removes the chaos he's been using as an escape not to engage. Now, when conflict happens, he can't deflect to, you're being too emotional. He has to actually deal with the issue. Maybe you learn how to communicate your needs more clearly. So instead of hinting or getting passive aggressive, you use I statements and you direct. You are specific. You say, I need help with the emotional labor around our daughter's anxiety. Can we talk about how to share that? And here's what that does: it removes the guessing game. Now he knows exactly what you need. He can't say, I didn't know. If he doesn't step up now, it's a choice. It's no longer confusion. Well, if you are in midlife and if you are married, listen up. You need this resource. I've got a new free guide, and it's called He Doesn't Get It Yet: How to Help Him See What You're Carrying Without Starting Another Fight. This free guide, it's going to help you identify what's really weighing on you, the invisible and the visible. It's going to help you understand why he hasn't noticed and why that's not entirely his fault. It's going to help you find language that helps him see what he's been missing. And it's going to help you start a conversation that might actually lead to real change. Because if your marriage feels like it's on life support, I want you to know that most husbands, they actually do want to show up for their wives. They just don't know how. They're still operating from the old playbook, and no one has even told them it's outdated. You can grab this free guide at Midlife Marriage's free guide, or check the show notes on this episode. Let's say that you're learning how to set boundaries without guilt so that you stop overfunctioning. You stop doing everything. You create space for yourself. Maybe you say something like, I need Saturday mornings to myself. You're going to have to deal with this. And here's what that does: it creates a gap that he has to decide what to do with. Will he step in? Will he complain? Will he realize how much you've been doing all along? Either way, the dynamic shifts. Let's say that you stop tolerating what doesn't work. You stop smoothing over his dismissiveness. You stop pretending his lack of emotional presence doesn't hurt. You stop accepting breadcrumbs. And here's what that does: it forces the relationship to confront what's actually true. The marriage can't hide behind everything's fine anymore. Your growth is dismantling the illusion of fine. And that's not destructive. That's actually honest. Because here's the thing: a lot of marriages are held together by one person's willingness to absorb and adapt and manage everything. And when that person stops absorbing, when she stops absorbing and starts reacting to his lack of effort, when she stops managing his emotions on top of her own, the marriage has to become different. Sometimes that different is better. Sometimes it's harder. Sometimes it's both, but it's always more honest. And honest is where real transformation becomes possible. So Here's what happens in a lot of marriages when she starts growing. At first, he doesn't notice, or he notices but doesn't think too much about it. She's reading a book, she's going to therapy, she seems calmer, cool. But then things start to feel different. She's not reacting the same way. She's not chasing him for connection. She's not managing his emotions, and she's not overfunctioning. And suddenly he feels it, the gap. The space where she used to be doing all the work and carrying all the weight, making it easy for him to coast, well, that space, it's uncomfortable. And that discomfort, that's what often wakes him up. Because here's the truth. Most men don't change because you ask them to. They change because staying the same stops working. And when your growth shifts the dynamic enough that his old patterns stop being sustainable, that's when he has a choice to make. Option one, he steps up. He realizes the marriage is shifting and he doesn't want to lose you. And so he starts paying attention. He starts doing his own work. He joins you in the growth. Then there's option two. He resists. He digs in. He gets defensive. He complains that you're different now in a way that implies different is bad. He wants the old version of you back, the one who made it easy for him. Or there's option three. He does both. He resists at first, and then he slowly starts to shift. It's messy, it's inconsistent, but eventually he begins to grow too. The point is, your growth creates conditions. Conditions where he has to decide what kind of husband he wants to be. Conditions where the marriage has to evolve or expose itself. Conditions where staying the same is no longer comfortable. And those conditions, well, they're powerful because you can't force someone to grow, but you can stop making it easy for them to stay stuck. And your growth is doing that. So now here's the really hard truth. Your growth is powerful. It's changing things. It's creating conditions. It matters. But it can't do the work of two people. It can't force him to be present. It can't create intimacy if he's not willing to be known. It can't build the connection you're longing for if he's not willing to meet you there. Your growth will make things better. It will make you stronger. It will shift the dynamic. But the thing is that it can't guarantee that he will grow with you. And at some point, you're going to have to be honest about what you're experiencing. Is the marriage improving because of your growth? Are things shifting in a way that gives you hope? Is he starting to wake up, to lean in, to do his own work? Or are you just getting better at managing a system that still leaves you in the same place, lonely? And there's no shame in either answer, but you deserve to be honest about which one is true. Because here's what happens when growth is truly one-sided. You become healthier, but the marriage doesn't become healthy. You become more whole, but the connection doesn't deepen. You become more clear, but the loneliness doesn't lift. And the gap between who you're becoming and the relationship that you're actually in, it becomes unbearable. And it's not because your growth has failed, but because growth alone can't create partnership. Partnership requires two people showing up. And if he's not willing to show up, then you get to decide what this means for you. Not today, not this week, but eventually. Can you live in a marriage that's functional but not intimate? Can you accept a partnership where you're growing but he's not? Or do you need more than just a better version of yourself, but you need a partner who's willing to grow with you? Those aren't easy questions, and there's no right answer that's going to fit everyone. But your growth has still given you something invaluable. It's given you clarity. Clarity about what you need, clarity about what's possible, clarity about what you're no longer willing to tolerate. And clarity is actually a gift, even if it's painful, even if it's uncomfortable, because clarity is where real decisions get made. So where do we go from here? You've been growing, you've been changing, you've been doing the work, and maybe things are shifting. Maybe they're not shifting enough. Maybe you're not sure what's happening anymore. But here's what I know. It's time for the conversation. Not the breakdown, not the explosion, not the tearful plea. The clear, honest, grounded conversation about what's changing in you and what you need from him. Because here's what most women don't realize. He doesn't know what you're carrying. He doesn't see the work you're doing. He doesn't understand that you're changing or why. And until you tell him directly, clearly, and calmly, he's going to keep thinking that everything is fine and that everything is the same. And so the conversation sounds something like this. I'm learning, I'm changing, and I need you to know what this means for us. Maybe you're saying, I'm doing a lot of work on myself and I need you to join me in this, not because you're broken, but because I can't heal this marriage by myself. Maybe you say, things can't stay the way they've always been, and I need to know if you're willing to grow with me. And that conversation can then become the turning point. That's where you stop doing all the work silently and invisibly and start inviting him into the partnership. And his response will tell you everything you need to know. If he leans in, you have hope. If he resists, you have clarity. Either way, you're no longer growing alone in the dark. You're growing with truth in the light. And that's where real transformation becomes possible. Well, if you are in midlife and you are married and you find yourself asking the question, do I even want to be married anymore? Know that I've got an amazing resource for you. I've actually got two of them. I've created the Midlife Map for women and the Midlife Map for men. The Midlife Map for women is going to help you understand what's actually happening with you. We're talking about all of the physical, emotional, and all the changes that we women go through. And then there's the map for him. It's going to help you. It's going to give you the words to share with your husband about what is actually going on with you in a way that he can understand. It's going to help him know why mowing the lawn, it just isn't what you need anymore. What you need, it goes much deeper. Make sure you visit midlifemarriages.com to check out this amazing resource. Here's what I know for sure. Your growth is not wasted. Every step that you've taken, every book that you've read, every therapy session, every moment of self-reflection, it's already changing you. These things are already changing your marriage. And the healthiest version of you will create the healthiest version of your marriage, whether he joins you in that activity or not. And so here's what makes the biggest difference. Here's what is going to help the most. It's having the conversation. The one where you stop carrying it all silently and start inviting him to see what's actually happening. The one where you say, I'm changing and I need you to understand what that means. And I need to know if you're willing to do it with me. That conversation is the bridge between one-sided growth and mutual transformation. And that's exactly what the free guide, He Doesn't Get It Yet, will help you navigate. Inside, you'll get language for the conversation so that you can name what's changing without making him defensive. You'll get a framework for inviting him in without begging or blaming or breaking down. You'll get clarity about what you need and how to ask for it directly. And here's what makes this even more powerful. After you have that conversation using the guide, you'll be ready for the next step, the next layer, the marriage maps. There's one for you, there's one for him. These aren't generic worksheets, they're roadmaps that help each of you identify where you are right now in the marriage and name what's working and what's not, and to clarify what you each need to feel connected and to create a shared vision for what comes next. The marriage maps give you a way to see the same situation from your perspective and then from the other person's perspective. And then you'll be able to both come together with clarity instead of conflict. This is how one-sided growth becomes mutual transformation. It's not by you doing the work all alone forever, but by you inviting him into the process clearly and directly with tools that actually help. You can grab the He Doesn't Get It Yet guide at midlifemarriagesfreeguide.com or check the show notes. And once you download it, you'll get immediate access to it, and then you'll be ready for the next step. Know that this is just one part in a series of 10 episodes that we're having, all about the conversations that midlife besties are having but afraid to say out loud. And so, until we talk again, make it an intentional day.